This is Madhur. Uh, I think some students had approached me a couple of weeks ago to do an AMA on product management and how to build your career towards it. Um, Frankly, I don't have very, what do you say, prescriptive answers. I'll tell you what my experience has been and try to answer as many queries as I can. Take everything that I say with a pinch of salt, because what I'll tell you is only a way, not the way to uh, get into product management. Product management per se is a fairly new field of work, especially in India. It's been there in, say, Silicon Valley for a while, so it's been doing fairly well. It's more defined. Unfortunately, that's not the case in India. So the way we do this is I have noted down all the questions that I've received from all of you uh, via the form, and some people had sent me separately as well. So I've collated all of them together and tried to put them under various buckets like there are basically two or three buckets. One is the basic skill sets required for the role, what is product management, and also how to make a move into product management. There are certain questions which are about um, more advanced topics, typically around, say, how to scale a product and other things, which is meant for people who are already product managers. For the sake of focus, we'll kind of skip that. We'll only focus on questions which are targeted towards students and maybe early professionals who are trying to get into product management. So yeah, that's where we are. The way I'm thinking of doing this is we'll go over the questions, start answering them. First, let me go over some basics of product management. And then in that light, start answering the questions. If you have further clarifications or any comments to make during those questions, please feel free to interject. The reason for keeping it a hangout and not a live chat was primarily so that we can have an interactive conversation. It would be much better to answer fully few people rather than answer like half-hearted answers to no one. So that's the motto. So please keep it interactive. I encourage and urge you. You're only 10 people, so it won't be a chaos. Sounds good. Awesome. So just to talk quickly about product management as a practice. So I'm assuming that most of you are early professionals or students who are trying to get into product management per se. So just to talk about the role per se, what does a product manager typically do? I saw a lot of questions also about that particular area. So a product management uh, in a nutshell is there to solve a problem. That's pretty much the big definition of a product manager. Your job is also sometimes to identify a problem, and then do whatever it requires to solve that problem. Take, for example, WhatsApp, for example, must have identified a problem. The problem they identified was communication, right? How do we make sure that people can chat with each other faster, quicker, and without sharing too much of a data? So they came up with a system where, hey, if I have your phone number, why can't I just simply add you to WhatsApp? And when I add you to WhatsApp, I can send you a message, which is over the internet. Since it's over the internet, it's essentially free. And they made sure that it is super reliable. So you started using it again and again and again. So that's what a typical product manager's job is, to identify a problem or a need in the market and doing whatever it takes to solve that need. Let me take another example. This example itself is a 45 minute talk, but I'll probably try and condense it. Suppose you're into the market of selling your houses, or maybe not selling houses, maybe renting houses. Your problem statement is, we want to expand our market. So you are the person responsible, you're the product manager, like, hey, figure out how do we basically, we want to expand into newer markets or newer areas, blah, blah, blah. You figure out that, hey, there is a need that your company typically sells mostly apartments. You figure out, you looked at your research, you work with your data science team or a data analyst team or a research team to figure out, hey, there is a need for buying independent houses, and that's pretty big, right? So that's the first hunch you have, that hey, there is something there. You find some reports online, maybe Gartner reports something, they say that this market is now exploding, and is going to be huge. So you start looking at it like, hey, this seems to be a good market to attack. But just listing those providers on your site, like listing independent houses, is not going to crack it, right? So you work with your research to like, why are people not buying? For example, why are people buying houses? What kind of people are buying those houses? And what are the issues that they typically face in buying those houses? And can you solve those issues? So issues could be manifold. One issue, for example, you identify, some issues could be just the lack of trust, people don't understand. Maybe you can solve it, maybe you cannot solve it. The second issue could be like, hey, legalities are a big problem. So what if uh, um, like you help them in legal stuff? Third issue could be that, hey, there aren't good independent houses which people want to buy in the areas that they want to buy in. So that could be another issue. So those are the kind of things that you will try and understand and figure out what are the biggest pressing points. Suppose as a product manager, while working with a researcher, you find out that, hey, availability is not an issue. Even legality and all is not an issue. The main legality, in a sense, like transferring it into my name and all that stuff, is not really a big issue. The biggest issue is trust. So how do you solve for trust? So that's the problem that you have identified. Your job now as a product manager is to come up with a solution. Problem identification happens typically when you work with a lot of uh, sorry, some more people have joined in. Yeah. So problem identification typically happens when you work with a lot of researchers, and you talk to customers, you look at their interviews, maybe you look at your data, and etc. Once you've identified that problem, it's your job to now figure out a solution. So now there are many, many ways of finding a solution to trust. So defining what trust is, how do you solve for trust? Trust could be as simple as uh, uh, talking more about who is selling. Trust could be something like, hey, I have verified the papers. You could get a lawyer on board and say, like, you verify the papers. You could do something even drastic. You can actually say that, hey, buy a property listed on my site, and if there is a problem with that property in terms of legality in next 10 years, I'll buy back the property from you, or I'll pay you the money for legal defense. Like, I'll hire my own lawyers and I'll defend you, and if you lose. So now you see there is a clear distinction between how you can approach this problem. Some of these would be very cheap problems, cheap solutions. Some of them would be super expensive solutions. So based on how big the problem is and which is the biggest bang for the buck, you decide to actually launch it. Suppose you launch a legal stamp that I've legally verified this property, then your job suddenly changes from this visionary to more of a business person, where you say, hey, now my job is to figure out, how do I say that this property is legally verified? There are rules and regulations in place on how to check that a property is legally verified. There are a lot of government agencies that can help you with that. Some of the records is online. This is not your area of expertise, so you probably talk to a lawyer or a law firm who then takes over the stuff. Then you set up systems like, hey, when somebody lists a property, how do I make sure that they give us the right information? How do we verify that information? Then how do we display that information? Now, displaying that information, you become this user researcher, like a user focused PM, where now you're talking about, hey, should I display a tag like a verified listing, or maybe I should put a full blown disclaimer? Then how do you explain to the user what does that even mean? And then you figure out basically various ifs and buts and various A and B experiments. You become an experiments PM. And once you have done that, you launch that feature. You launch that feature and then you do multiple funnel optimizations and check whether it actually helped you sell more uh, houses. So yeah, that's the kind of a role that a product manager typically does in an organization. The role changes from which cycle of the life cycle stage a product is in. You can be a visionary, you can be an executor, you can be this design focused PM, you can be an analytics focused PM, you can be um, uh, yeah, you can be even business BDD focused PM. So it depends on where you are in terms of your stages of the product and what kind of that product are we talking about. As you can see, I did not take a tech product per se, because there's this assumption that tech is the only product, and tech skills and being a software engineer is an absolute necessity. I just wanted to kind of harp on this fact that not really. So any questions till now before we move on to questions? None. Okay. Let me share my screen. Other thing is that I think some of you have asked, I'm hoping that you've seen the LinkedIn profile, but quick introduction about me and how did I get into product management, because a couple of people have asked me. Frankly, accidentally. When we started, like when I started my career, there weren't many product management per se. Product management as a career itself was not really a very known thing. Been a developer for about 6 odd years, did my MBA because I wanted to become a consultant. Became a consultant, tech consultant, hated it. And yeah, I hated tech consulting, and I was figuring out what to do next. And that's when I think that's when Microsoft approached that there's a new, we are looking for program managers features. So they used to call them program managers features. Features basically means it's a product role. Explain to me what that role would be. And I interviewed, I cleared and got in, frankly. There was no major planning on my end to chart my career to become a product manager. And you will see this actually repeated across multiple stories. If you talk to a lot of product managers, they chanced upon it. They accidentally became product managers. Some of them realized that they were product managers. They were just not called that, because I also realized I was a portals expert. We used to do some parts of, like, we used to design front end portals for large scale companies. So uh, eventually a lot of it was product management itself. So yeah, from there, from Microsoft, I moved on to a startup called Flock, which is a uh, startup by DirectI founders. Was there for about 2 odd years. From there, moved on to Uber, spent some time there, and from Uber, I'm now joined Google a couple of months back. So yeah, that's my story in a nutshell. Frankly, nothing too exciting about that. So yeah, any more questions? Any questions? None.
Okay,
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So how does PM at being Microsoft, Uber, and Google? So how did your roles differ? If you can talk about that.
The, not much, frankly. Like the only difference was the customer changed. So when I was working for Microsoft, for example, I worked in multiple teams. So I have worked in, initially I started my career in the health and fitness app. So we were developing an app for Microsoft Android and iOS versions. So we were a consumer focused team. So my role was a very consumer focused PM. I then worked on MSN.com, the backend part. So my work was more platform. So how do you get data from 1,000 publishers to come on MSN.com? What kind of tools you can give to publishers, internal publishers who decide what to show on Amazon.com. So those kind of things, maybe machine learning algorithms to find the related articles. So again, it was a mix of consumer plus internal customers. Third, Flock, my role was mostly geared towards B2B because we're a B2B company. So it's a little bit of a different challenge. You need to think a little differently because the users is a company, not one single user. So sometimes you need to basically build slightly different, like the problems are different. And Uber was completely consumer focused, and even in Google I'm part of search ads, so that's also fairly consumer focused.
Okay, thank you.
So
Hi,
yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you have this experience across all the multinationals. So you have had product manager roles in the platform domain, also the consumer and the B2B space. So how
Yeah.
do you prep yourself? Like, how do you juggle these roles? Let's say I'm managing a team of only backend engineers and we have to deliver something, and then I get into another role which is more front end focused and involves front end technologies. But in my life, I've never worked on front end, but I have to, look over a product and guide a team. So, like, how do you prep yourself, or how do you juggle between
Yeah,
the roles?
that's
I think if I could, sorry, I was thinking, since I have a similar question, I just wanted to add it
sure.
along with this question, because I was thinking like, how do you handle the context switches? Because the role is pretty far-reaching. Like at one point, you're talking to the dev team, which is very different from say talking to the sales team, and also talking to the testing, for example. So
Yeah.
how do you handle the context switches?
Okay, so I'll answer this, but just FYI, like I really want to focus on students and others, and these are little advanced questions. So, but quickly, like how did I prep myself? Frankly, the some of the tenets are the same. So I'll talk about the skills that I believe product managers require. The
Mm-hmm.
basic skill that any product manager requires is actually just user empathy. The user could be a consumer, user could be a business, user could be a like your internal team as well. So like companies like Uber, Google have teams which are focused on making internal stuff better, for example, right? Uh, so for them, we are the customers, right? So the if you have right empathy, if you have empathy, you will be able to understand the problem of the user. If you're able to understand the problem of the user, you would automatically be able to then come up with solutions. Problem identification is the biggest hurdle, and that problem identification, your user empathy is the biggest thing. Now, how do I switch? That's a very good question. I don't know. I have actually put this question across to the exact same question to multiple people. Uh, One is switching when you are part of a single product, then the switching doesn't happen that much because the product is in a particular stage. So you are also in a particular stage. But as you grow in your career, you'll start seeing that you'll have multiple eggs in the basket, and all of them have a little bit of a different lifestyle stages. Like I'm working on like 3 different products. So in those 3 different products, each one of them has a little. So I've tried techniques like assigning days, like, okay, Monday, I'll only think about this, Tuesday, I'll think about this. When I said that also has kind of not really worked. So I typically just, what do you say, take a 5-minute break and switch quickly.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay. Just give me a second. One second. Sorry, guys. My son had come. So yeah. So I don't know. I don't have a good answer to do product context switching. If you have a good model, please let me know. So I've heard of people talking about spending 10% time on this, 20% time on this, 30% time on this. I don't think anything like what's 30% time. So I don't anything that is 30% is actually almost like 100%. So that's the thing. Any more questions?
One question I like to ask, like, for example, we also say that when we talk about product management, that our product manager is known to be like a time management king. Like he's the best person who can prioritize things or everything like that. So as you said, since you are facing problem when you're dealing with 3 or 4 products right now, how did you start and how did your prioritization skills improved over the time?
Yeah, so I started with going 100% in all 2 3, but slowly and slowly, frankly, my belief over the years has is very simple. Like, as product managers, you don't have authority, but you have all the responsibility. You have to just remember that. That means you have to rely a lot on your team. And over the years, again, remember pinch of salt. So uh, over the years, I have realized that the best way to do this is, if you can start, you need to really, really, really trust your team. The problem with a lot of product managers is we become we drink the Kool-Aid of that you are the CEOs of the product too much. You're not. That's my opinion. You're not the CEO of the product. You are here to solve a problem. And sure, some of your responsibilities may seem like make you feel like you are the CEO of a product, but typically you're here to solve a problem. You're doing a role, and everybody is doing their role. So you need to understand that and start taking a back step. So one of the reason a lot of times you are crunched for time is because you are getting too much into too many things. So you're trying to micromanage. You're trying to get into things that you're not even experts at. So you need to be able to kind of um, delegate. I won't say delegate because that's not your job to do. Basically trust your team. For example, if you don't have to like, I don't sit with my designer and talk about every single day, like exactly this is how I want it, exactly this is what needs to be and all that stuff. They are the expert. Let them come up with something and you challenge them based on the principles that you have set for the product. And many a times, if your designers start also taking the same decisions that you would have taken, you've succeeded as a product manager. As a good product manager is the one who can basically make themselves completely redundant. So, I mean, we've had these discussions internally. Why do we even need product managers? That's a good question. What if? Because a lot of product management is common sense. So, so yeah, if you can take a 1 week off and nothing burns, nothing stops, and even if there's a decision to be made, and your team, be it your tech team, be it your design team, be it your research counterparts, any one of them taking a call on what feature to be built or what prioritization to be built, if that is like 90-95% of what you would have done, you've succeeded, because that means you've been able to explain the vision of the product and you've been able to explain the problem that you're trying to solve and how you're planning to solve it. The rest all is mechanics. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's all answers. Thank you.
Yeah, so take a step back. Like, my advice to all, initially, like, you have this habit of uh, like micromanaging, right? Like, everybody has, like, a lot of product managers especially have this need to get into everything. You should be part of everything, but you should not be driving everything. Let me put it this way. Your job is to make sure that everybody's going in a common direction. Your job is not to like pick up the slack for everyone else. So your designer, like, you will realize as your product managers, initially you work with data scientists or data analyst or researcher. You are not an expert in all three areas. You just know about all three areas. Then after that, you're working with design. You're not an expert designer. Your designers are the expert designers. You're working with your devs for building something. You're not an expert dev. You're probably not even a dev. So you're not really an expert in any of the areas that you're getting into. So trust the experts, let them do their magic. And your job is to make sure that that is all the effort that everybody is doing is going towards that common goal. And you just make sure that that common goal is always in everybody's vision, and people know exactly what they're doing and how you're planning to do that, what to measure, those things. What's the North Star? If you've done that, you've succeeded as a product manager. Then you can take 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 projects. That's fine. But you need to trust your team. Like, really, really trust your team. Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on to yeah.
Madhu, yeah, just one question. So the things you have talked about, all these seems that a person gains from experience in corporate or maybe some startups. So is it like, especially in case of India, that these product manager roles are generally given to experienced people rather than the freshers like us?
Let me just start those questions. So all these questions are kind of answered here. Right.
Okay.
So you guys can see my screen.
Yes.
Yes, yes, we can see.
Awesome. So I'll just first talk about questions on is product management more of a tech position or a business position? Answer, like, it depends on the kind of company you are in, kind of product you are in. It depends is my favorite answer. Like most product managers, that's the favorite thing. So depends on the company, depends on the product, depends on the life cycle of the product. Some companies will have tech, like super tech. Like if you're a product manager at Google, there's a high chance that you are a techie. There's a, as I said, it's a chance, but that doesn't mean that's the only one. Similarly, Microsoft, uh, we also had a lot of techies who went into become into product management. But there are a lot of companies where running a Okay. I just got a message from Zoom that they have removed the 40-minute time limit so we can go over. Awesome. Thank you, Zoom. So this is great product management. Do you realize this? This is a good example of a great product manage. Some product manager figured out that people are wary of 40-minute meeting. If I want a 60-minute meeting, I have to actually pay Zoom, but my meeting is about to get over and I have 10 participants. I'm pretty sure there are certain rules. So they figured out that there are 10 participants and all of them are engaging. So this meeting is not getting over in 40 minutes. So rather than just throwing them out, why don't we give them a small gift from Zoom saying that, hey, for this meeting, we are making it 60. So basically we are removing the limit and you can go ahead and buy Zoom if you want to. I actually love Zoom as a product. I think this is a phenomenally well done product. Okay, sorry, coming back. So yeah, depends on the team, depends on the kind of life cycle that the product is in. Are these roles more prevalent? Are roles more prevalent in India, more like technical PMs, the ones which are more into technology than overall? Not really, because we have PM roles now opening up. This is a golden age for PM in some sense in India, because PM, I believe product management actually started fairly recently in India as a practice. Most of the earlier people used to confuse them with project managers. And as a result, there was a lot of confusion around that. Thanks to companies like say Microsoft, which started doing program manager roles, as they call it, and even a lot of Indian product oriented startup companies which became big, like Flipkart would be a great example. Flipkart has some amazing product leaders out there. So now we are seeing a lot of startups wanting to have product managers as early as possible. My only caveat, please remember that just be sure that these are not project manager roles where the founder says, hey, this is my vision, these are the 5 projects we have to do, please go ahead and do it. That's a project manager role. If there's nothing to figure out, that's not product manager. Okay. So no, you can think about a lot of startups. You have to just figure out which ones. There are medical startups, health tech startups. There's I was talking to somebody. There are a lot of startups in fintech space which are trying to, when I say fintech, even financial space, which are trying to actually figure out how do we give more loans to people. So they will have product management from all kinds of places. There are services startups which talk about, there are aggregators, right? They will have a lot of product managers who are focused and working with BDs and partners. So no, not technicals are not the only ones, but typically technically is more because we have a lot of technology startups. So it's a function of that, in my opinion. But pretty much every type of company needs a product manager. What else different between a job of a product analyst and a product manager? They are completely different roles. Product manager is basically, in some sense, I read this definition somewhere, keeper of vision and repeater of vision. I forgot who said that. So that's what product manager is. Product analyst is basically more of a data science oriented role where you are actually looking and deep diving into various aspects of the product. That's amazing. I mean, that's an amazing role to be in. And is product manager a stepping stone for PM role, and how much time does it take for transition? Absolutely, yes. There are a lot of, so as I said, every role is a stepping stone to PM, because PM is such a central role. You could be a designer and become a PM. You could be a developer and become a PM. You could be an analyst and become a PM. The idea is that you are able to understand one aspect of it really well, and then you'd start looking at the overall aspect and basically connecting the dots. So yes, product analyst to product manager is absolutely possible. A lot of product managers would be actually analysts, not just analysts, consultants. I was a consultant, right? So there are multiple consultants I know who became product managers as well. So, and of course, designers. Designers also become product managers, and techies anyways have a, currently there's a set path already for a lot of techies do become product managers. So yeah, you can become one. How much time is completely on you. So there's no answer to that question, unfortunately. Okay, this is done. Let's talk about skills. Okay, PM role is more hands-on, right? Unlike software engineering, where you can do some projects on your own and train. So apart from reading few books, how can I prepare to face the challenge of our day-to-day job? Is Akash there? Hello? Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay. So Akash is not there. So I'm not able to understand what you mean by hands-on, unlike software engineering. My assumption is what you mean is that it is experiential. Yes, product management is typically a more experiential role rather than done in a silo. It is by definition a very team-oriented role. That doesn't mean that you can't think about that. So I think there are multiple questions around how do you learn about product manager. One, I would not suggest people to try and learn, if you're a student starting off, to try and learn product management, because what is product management itself is there is the courses that if you to pick up any product management course, they will talk about marketing, they'll talk about strategy, they'll talk about design. So rather than trying to learn about product management, I would say learn about these hardcore skills, like learn about marketing, go deeper into marketing, what marketing really does. If you're a technologist, please go ahead and be a really good coder. That actually helps. And then start looking at the larger picture of things. Similarly, if you are a strategist, there is nothing called a strategist. So you can read about strategy, you can read about case studies, there are a lot of them. Or you can actually start reading about psychology, for example. Psychology is a really, really good thing for product managers to know, because it helps you even understand research. Think about user research. That's one of the things that I find really, really lacking, especially in product managers in India. Like there's very little focus on user research. But Indian startup itself, ecosystem is not yet geared towards a lot of user research. So how do you do that? Because that's the fundamental thing, right? How do you identify a problem itself? Go deep into data. How do you do an analysis? Can you on your own do some kind of a pattern? Maybe look at the industry that you are very interested about, gather whatever data you can get from online sources, and maybe do something about it, talk about it. If say there are a lot of articles written on in these tech magazines, right? Why can't you write your own? Of course, there'll be a lot of learnings required, but you can do that. Other things that you can do is, of course, some people said blogging. Yes, that's a good way, only if you are able to actually really, really think deeply about it. Don't blog for the sake of blogging, because it's very easy to understand this is a very shallow blog. So make sure you have spent some time and thought about that. You can do product critiques. You can think about why a particular company is going in that direction. I mean, assume you're thinking about strategy. If you're thinking about design, why these design choices would have been made. Say, pick up Twitter. The Twitter has like 5 things on top or 3 things on top. Why would they have done it? What are the typical use cases they want to solve, right? So those are the kind of things you can start thinking about and forming your opinion about. Pick a product that you really like. go deep into that. Maybe write a blog post on that. That will be a interesting thing to see. So yeah, there is no sure, I would say, like, there's no set place to go and study product management. And please don't study product management, study marketing, study strategy, study design, study psychology. Product management is just connecting the dots, but you need to first have those dots. Okay. What do you recommend students should be doing, prepare themselves for the PM role later in life? Same thing, start thinking about a larger picture, be good at what you are, and then think about product management is what I say. Don't, it's like you don't start your career by thinking like, hey, I want to be a manager in some sense. Like there was like a general manager. You can't start as a general manager. You have to, you got to start as something good you're good at, and then you grow into that role. Similarly, product management is very experiential. Be a good, say, a designer, be a good analyst, be a good developer, and you would potentially be a good product manager. We have to find those right opportunities and just grab them. What can answer? I have an observation. Most product managers have an MBA and a CSE degree, or at least one of them. Is this some unsaid degree requirement for the role of product management? The answer is most product managers. I would say that, yeah, I have seen a lot of CS degree holders. Not everyone is an MBA. For example, in Microsoft also, a lot of my colleagues were not MBAs. MBA helps, let me be very brutally honest. I believe that MBA, as I said, right, MBA teaches you these skills like that, talk about marketing, strategy, finance, business, all those things. And hence, somebody who's done an MBA kind of understands it a little better. That doesn't mean there is a rule per se. There is no unsaid or a said rule also that you need to be an MBA or a CS degree. Depends on the company and depends on CS degree might be some technology exposure must be necessary for the kind of role and the kind of company you're talking to. So if you have to really work on a tech product, you say, for example, you were a product manager on Visual Studio, you need to really understand the psyche of a typical developer. So if you have been a developer, it really helps. And if you're talking day and night with a developer counterpart who are actually working with you, it makes so much sense that you also are a developer so that you can be on the same wavelength. Otherwise, it's a very difficult task. Since those are the kind of roles probably you are more exposed to, hence you would see a lot of CS or technology people working directly. It helps. That doesn't mean there is a rule per se. There is no rule. On the contrary, people are trying to figure out how do we like make sure people know there's no rule. Okay, what would be the value of an MBA to get into product management and succeed as a PM? As I said, it's just pure knowledge, because you learn those things which you can learn on your own. But what I believe is MBA is not necessary for you to become a PM, but MBA will help you become a PM faster. Let me put it this way, because you are in some sense gaining that skill set faster, and it's a signaling tool as well. So it's knowledge, it's pure knowledge. So do we have a question? Okay, some people dropped out, they just joined again. Okay, now coming to the next question. Same question. I've seen software engineers being major chunk of product managers. Sure, because these are tech companies. So software engineers who kind of rise above what they are doing and want to get a little bit deeper into business side of things. That's a good slam dunk for a lot of companies, right? So you already understand them, you already understand tech, and now you are trying to learn other skills that will help you make better product decisions. So yes, that's the reason they are there. How important do you think software engineer experience for product managers? If you are in a tech company, I believe it's super important. If you have to work very closely with devs, some kind of a technology exposure is necessary. Otherwise, it'll be a very huge gap to fill in. Also, what are the must-have skills for a good product manager? Answered already. Must-have, there's one must-have, which is empathy. Apart from that, rest all is mechanics, I would say. You can learn them. Courses, learns, resources, I will take that later. Do you need to know in detail which with courses, all and other aspects of PM like UI, UX, business? Do you need to know in detail? The more you know, the better it is. If you're talking about getting into product management, having an understanding is important. If you are a product manager, sure, as you basically spend more time, you'll become better and better automatically, because these are the course skill sets for any product manager. And you will choose your own path. Some product managers will look at many aspects. Some of them will become experts at certain things. Like you might become the expert in UI, UX, basically customer focused product manager. You may not be great at thinking about systems or platforms, but you will be super great at actually figuring out how do you solve this particular problem on for these users. So yeah, most important skills done. What are the companies expect from freshers? They are not expecting you to have product roles, of course. So rest be assured. One second. Yeah. So be assured, nobody is expecting you to have product management roles like experience per se. They're expecting you to be smart, frankly. It's a commonsensical role. So if you can think from a customer's perspective, that would be, I would assume, is one of the biggest takeaways. Rest all, of course, if you're a techie, they would want you to be a good techie. That remains. And of course, like at the end of the day, you need to be a little bit of a I wouldn't say people's person, but you should be able to work in a team. So, and you would realize that none of these things are different from any other role that I would have spoken about. If you'd asked me about techies also, I would have said similar things. It's nothing, I don't think so it's anything very varied. You just need to be a little, what do you say, aware about the user. If you are, it's a home run. Now, every company will have its own way of measuring and finding that. Some of them might give you case studies. Some of them might do an interview. Some of them might do group discussions. Unfortunately, I've never recruited from engineering campuses, so I can't tell you what would I have looked for or what I did look for. How?
Hey, a quick question.
Yeah.
So like I'm a fresher right now. Like basically, I'm going to go in my last year.
Okay.
So what I'm asking is, what do you think we should do? Is we should work in our own domain for a while, or go look for a startup that require a product manager and like get into that category? Like, what do you suggest?
So if you are sure that you want to be a product manager, then and you have an opportunity to get into product management, please go. Like, this is very pragmatic advice. Just go and do it. Just get into a product management if you are sure you want to do product management. So get into it. And there are a lot of startups, thankfully, now in India who are willing to bet on smart people. So the next question, I'm pretty sure you'll be like, how do you approach these startups, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So there is many of them automatically, like they have postings about like, they're not really looking for MBAs or other things. You can be a fresher and apply. So somebody pointed out APM programs. Yes, they are amazing programs. You should take them if you get a chance. Again, depends on the company to company, but most of them are looking to groom you as product manager. So that's a good thing if you have already made up your mind to be a product manager. Second is, of course, I would say build something. If you're a techie, the best way to talk about is build something, man. I mean, there's these days is no dearth of actually showing what you know, right? It's much more easier. Like back in 2006 and all, it was slightly harder. I won't say very hard, slightly harder. But now it's not. You want to get into a design focused company, why can't you just create a Behance profile? Maybe just teach yourself a little bit of wireframing and do something about it. Like, what's wrong? There's nothing stops you. You're a developer. Why can't you and you want to say get into a product management company which is more app focused? Why can't you make your own simple app? And the difference is that if you're talking to a tech company, you'll talk about all the libraries you used in the app, all like machine learning algorithms you use, this neural programming and all this stuff, blah blah blah, right? You'll talk about all those keywords. But if you're talking to a product management interview, you would be focused mostly on, hey, this is the problem that I'm trying to solve. This is the problem I'm trying to solve, and hence I have built this particular tool, and in this particular tool, this is how it solves that problem. And this is then you can say I measured it and this is the data point and blah blah blah, right? Maybe do some A/B experiments. Who stops you from doing that? These things are fairly easy to do these days, so there's no excuse for not trying if you want to do that. Third is, of course, like I've seen some people do that very successfully. It's a very high risk, high reward thing. If there are startups you want to target and you know them, figure out what are the problems they might be trying to solve. Write your thoughts on a piece of paper in a much structured way. Like, hey, this is why, this is how you solve it. Like, these are my thoughts on how and what you can do. And maybe reach out to the high ups in the startups. And if it's a startup, maybe just directly reach out to a CEO. I've seen somebody do that and it's worked phenomenally well. In my previous company, somebody did that. It works. It can work because the key is that there is meat in that particular document that you send them. It is a well thought out, well researched talk. It's very time consuming. So make sure that you're not bombarding everybody with it, because you will not do a good job.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So if you are not able to reach out to the CEO, nothing stops you from putting it on LinkedIn or a Medium or your own blog post. Use those things. Just be cautious that, just don't put for the sake of putting, like, it's like a lot of advice per se, like, don't put it as an advice is another thing. That's what I would say. Like, you're talking about your views, so let them be enamored and be happy about it. Yeah. So yeah, everybody's looking for signals. Give them those signals, and these are the best ways of giving signals. What are some of the hard skills or tools an undergraduate work upon before entering a product team? Is Umang on call by any chance? No. Yes. Hey Umang, can you hear me? Okay. I think he's not near his desk, so we'll skip. Going to making the move. How do you build a profile to get into product manager as development team leader at a startup? Yeah, so if you're in a startup, see, if you're already in a company and you want to become a product manager and that company has a product management job title, please do everything. Like, just go and talk to the leadership. I want that. How do I do it? So pretty much every company will have that transition. So because that's the best way of actually getting getting product managers, that transition, because you know the company, they trust you. They've already, like, if you're a tech lead, even better, you understand the technology. Now you're trying to get into the product side. I would say that's the best way to just talk to them. What do they look for? And just do that and make the move.
Hey Madhur, I think that's my question actually.
Yeah.
So this is Abhishek. Hi.
Yeah, Abhishek.
So is it essential? So here I'm managing a team. I'm looking after the product and everything end to end, like trying to get into production and everything. So is it necessary that when you go to a designated PM role, you have to like stop developing at all, like stop coding or something, and you're only expected to manage the team? Is it like, in a startup, like when I joined the startup, there were like only 2 engineers. Now there are like 20, so I have like 5 people working with me.
So yeah,
So,
that's something on you. Like typically, product managers should not be coding.
Got it.
I don't know of any product manager who still codes. They might have been ex-coders. They might code for fun, or they might help with some code reviews if they were kick-ass developers. The moment they shift into product management role, you don't really have bandwidth to code. If you're doing coding, then you need to take a call which way, this way or that way. That's what I'm saying. Be very careful about if you want to product management. One of the reasons I want to do is also to do this myth breaking. Like I think there are a lot of product management things that you read online are just romanticization of product management. It's just like any other role. It has its great things, and it also has its own drudgery. A lot of it. So yeah, maybe do a trial if there is one in your company, and if you like it, stick to it. If you don't like it, come back. But please be very, very sure that you want to be a product manager. Once you've been a product manager for many years, I doubt whether you can go back to coding, because software changes so rapidly, unless you start your own company or you go for a startup and all that stuff. But yeah,
Understood.
yeah, this way or that way, man.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So for a
Hey,
person,
Madhur, this is Umang.
yeah, Umang.
Yeah, can we come back to our
Yeah.
my question?
Yeah. So yeah, your question. Sorry, I lost that question. What was that? Sorry.
I asked, what are these hard skills? What are some of the hard skills which we can learn while we are in college to, sort of ease out our transition from the college to a product team?
Yeah. So if you're already getting a product management offer, I don't think you have to do much. Uh, so you're there. So everything else you can learn on the job. Hard skills I would anyways recommend is learn about marketing, learn about uh, just give me a second. Yeah, learn about marketing, learn about say how to do user research, learn a bit on psychology. And you can also learn a lot on, say, for example, I think one of the key things in most companies from a lot of product managers is data. So I I I have not met a product manager who said that data is not important to the job. Pretty much every single product manager. So you can also get into maybe understanding a more on data analysis, maybe statistics, get those chops in, so that when you're when you join the company and somebody asks you what's P95, what statistically significant lift means, you can at least answer them well. You have an understanding. Basically, I'm not asking you to become a data scientist, but you should be able to understand.
Hey, just another quick question to add to both of the answers. Hello?
Yeah, sorry. My son keeps coming back. I'm so sorry for this. So yeah.
Yeah. So like you said that you learn these skills, and his question was like how he the coding part of it. So like once I have certain skills, like right now I'm doing my engineering. So is product management basically just carrying the vision and not really like actually doing the hands-on approach to it?
You will, yeah. So let me break that bubble. You will not be coding. I don't know. I mean, if you're coding, that's not really being a product manager yet. You are doing a dual role. Eventually, in every company, you'll have to give up. A product manager is a keeper and repeater of a vision. The product manager is there to help identify a problem that you need to solve, and also help identify a solution on how to solve that problem. And how does the product manager do it? Is by working with the experts in those domains. Like as a product manager, most product managers will work with research really helps you understand. So you need to understand. Research can devise the questionnaire and what kind of questions to ask, but and who to interview and how to interview, they can figure those things out. Your job is to ask the right question. Hey, what am I trying to achieve with this, and make sure that your researchers understand. Similarly, design, this is the problem we are trying to solve. You will not be designing, you might make prototypes, but the eventual design typically would be designers. Similarly, as a after that, if when developers, for example, if it's a tech company, if developers pick up, then you will have probably a say in the architecture and other things, but you will not be coding. So that's why I want to make sure that people understand that there is a difference of how you basically work as a product manager than some of the roles. Like, you're not the actual builders on your own. You will do data science, but you will work with your data analyst on that. You will do A/B experiments, but somebody else would be setting it up with you. Of course, in startups, you will do whatever is required. There's product managers do pick up various hats as they build. For example, I've done marketing, I've done copy, I have done data analysis when we didn't have data analyst team. So looking at how the product is doing. I have done a lot of BD. I have done sales, actually gone on sales calls. So as and when, wherever required, you are there. But eventually, you are not a salesperson, you're not a BD person, you're not a marketeer, you're not a copywriter. You're a product manager. You are doing those because it's needed to be done.
All right, thanks.
Okay, right. I like to add on to this question. You just brought up this that when you are in a startup, you are trying to wear different hats. Like, you do things because things have to be done. So basically, like in this scenario, we can see that, for example, if anyone wants to do a startup in the future, in the nearby, let's say 3 to 4 years, then a product manager role would be an apt role for him or her. So can you just please comment something like that?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Product manager role does have some flavor of startup. Again, depends on the company. Like, if they have given you if you're doing a product where you're just incrementally making something better, a huge product, that's one way. Many times it might be something that you start from scratch. Good thing about product management is that you are able to see it from end to end. So from idea to conception to the actual maintenance of the product, you are part of almost every single stage. Even killing the product, the hardest decision for any product manager is killing the product they have built. Even that is on you. Ideally, it's on you. You should be taking that call. If somebody else takes that call, then you are a little, you didn't do a great job there. But that implies that you, since it's such a cross-functional role, the skill sets that you will learn there will definitely help you when you do your own startup. But I would be very cautious in saying, like, hey, if you want to do a startup in 3 years, become a product manager. No, I'll be very cautious in saying that. I don't think there is enough evidence around to say any of them. Like, you could be a great marketeer and make a great startup. A lot of techies make startups, right? They are not product managers. So yeah, product managers is a skill set you can understand, learn, and it gives you a good idea. But I would not go far as saying that if you want to do a startup, become a product manager. I'll hold my judgment on that.
Okay.
I
One more
looked at some of the
question to
best
add to
startups
this,
that
which
like
is
started by Bunces. I don't think any of them was a product manager. Look at pick up any startup that you like. See if their CEOs are ex-product managers. I mean, that would be a good way of.
yeah, there is this case. Yeah, basically, like if you talk about Udan, like in this B2B, recently it has been a like unicorn. So there, the CEOs were like they were ex-Flipkart product managers, like one or two of them. So yeah,
Yeah,
so
very
there are
many.
certain evidences, but yeah, it's not.
I mean, I'm
There
not.
is some sample space.
Yeah. See, I'm not saying that it doesn't help. I'm just saying I'll hold my judgment on it because
Got it.
it's romanticization of the role. So they were early employees of Flipkart, so they saw the company grow. So you have to realize that they
Right.
actually build that company, so they know exactly how to do that, and hence, so as a product manager, it definitely helps. I'm not saying it does not, but I won't say that if you want to be a
Right.
entrepreneur, please go ahead and do a product management role. No, do whatever you're good at. Do whatever you feel is the right thing. Frankly, a domain expertise may give you much more. See, I'm assuming you're not doing a startup because you don't know what to solve for right now, right? If you already have an idea,
Right.
one way of getting that idea could be actually going deeper into a domain rather than being a generalist, right? So you can go deeper as a domain
Right.
as a
Right.
product manager, or maybe you actually become a domain expert. So yeah, I want to be pragmatic. I want to give very pragmatic advice. I don't want to romanticize the role too much.
Right.
It's a cool role, let me be very frank, but if you enjoy it.
Right. Okay.
Oh,
Thank you. Like, I like to add one more question.
yeah.
So, which is, let's say you have been into this product manager role for the past 5 to 6 years.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, in every role, like whatever you do, you feel a little bit of fatigue, or uh, it has been a long time you've been doing this or that. So,
Hmm.
what are there have been like times when you felt like, what am I doing? Or are there times where means do you want to switch to something, or like can you just tell some like a few of the 2 or 3 hard times when like I think you understand what I'm saying,
Yeah. I
something
mean,
like that.
it's not different from any other role. Like I had these moments even as a developer. I got bored of a project. So, so after you've done enough, you can always ask your team that, hey, can I, like I did that in when I was working as a developer. I was like, hey, I'm done with this project. There's very little challenge left. Can I do something else? And they found me something else. So as simple as that. Product, typically I would really advise, if you can, stay with the product as long, because that's your baby. Frankly, most product managers are, one, we are opinionated people, which is not bad. Many of them are of us are very passionate about. You need to be really passionate about your product to actually bet a lot of stuff. So let me put it very frankly: if the product fails, if the product does well, everybody does well. Pretty much everyone can get asked for a promotion. The dev team, the design team, the research team, the product manager also. But if the product fails, the biggest axe falls on the product manager. Your neck is on the line always. So you need to make sure like you are really passionate about the problem you're solving. And if you're passionate, you don't really get bored. And if the product is doing good, the numbers will keep you excited, man. But if it's not working out, you can always ask for a change in a larger company. In a smaller company, you can look at a different problem or switch.
Talking about the product and the role, like how much freedom and like actual decision of yourself can you actually implement on the product? Like,
Uh,
are you given that freedom to use your vision?
Completely depends on the company, and completely depends on your like the culture of the company. So um, some of that's also like a lot of startups are not looking for product managers, they are looking for project managers. So you need to be very clear about that, in where you have zero flexibility. The founder has a vision. uh, Many times, and this is a good analogy, right? For most companies, especially tech company, the founder is the product manager, right? Because even if they have no product management, because they've started a company, they're going all in for one idea that they have, and they already have a vision. If they didn't have a vision, they would be not starting up. They already have a vision. So many startups are not looking for product managers, they're looking for project managers. So if you don't join those startups, unfortunately you will have zero what do you say, flexibility. And it also again depends on which role and level you are. Initially you might start with optimizing small things, and if you're larger company, you will optimize small things. If you're larger companies, smaller companies, you might be given a big problem statement to solve. An ideal product management role has a lot of freedom, but a lot of these things are not ideal. So you'll have to go with the flow. And frankly, since it's India is new to, like relatively new to product management, it's still evolving. Companies are figuring out how to work with product management and grow their product management practices. So that takes a while. Like that means that some people will have to give up some control that they were doing. Some decisions have to be moved away from some people. So that's a call and growing up that a lot of organizations need to do if they want product managers.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. Just to put in perspective, ownership, like even in a company like Uber, I did have a lot of ownership. So I worked on, say, web products. M.Uber was one of the biggest things, the PWA. I had a lot of ownership on that particular piece. Okay, moving on. But yeah, just to add to it, if you don't have enough ownership and the flexibility, of course, you are supposed to justify your decisions, but flexibility to take those calls and decisions, you're probably not a product manager. You are a project manager. You may be called a product manager. You need to either be okay with it, have hard calls with whoever is managing you, or move out to other companies. So you need to be aware that this is not, product managers typically have some flexibility to take these things. Okay, moving on. So we were at skills, right? And sorry, making the move. Okay, as a fresher, how do I approach PM? My work way into is how do I get into product manager? I think we've answered pretty much all these questions. What are the opportunities for freshers to enter this domain as APM roles? Yeah, they are awesome. There's one more question from Anonymous. Anon, I'm assuming that's not a name. For a person trying to get into product management role from business, what are the things he should be doing? Is it doing some sidekick projects, trying to build a personal social brand, start writing blogs on product management, anything else? So this is what I'm super scared of. I wouldn't say scared of people like trying to write blogs on product management. It's like first understand what it is. So maybe you can write blogs on just marketing strategy or just from a business perspective on what, if you are in business, you already have the right skill sets to do product management. So business is, because product management deals with business, you already have one aspect. Now look at the other aspects and the third aspects and the fourth aspect. That's a well-rounded profile. There's the word product man, like that's why I'm very, very skeptical about courses about product management or people saying, hey, like read about product, like what do I read about product management? There's not much out there. If you pick up any product management blog from the bigger sources, they would be talking about something else. They will be talking about either just human behavior. They might be talking about some aggregated data. They might be talking about A/B testing. They might be talking about user research. Nobody's talking about product management. Product management is a byproduct of knowing all those things. So yeah, that's there. Another question is it already late for a person who has 8 years of experience in business roles to shift to product management? Absolutely not. I had 6 years, then I become a consultant for about half a year. So 6.5, 7 years, then I became a product manager. So there is absolutely no, what do you say, rule that you need to start young in product management. On the contrary, a lot of us have accidental product managers, not by design. We just happen to be there and decided to actually pursue this and became product managers. So yeah, you can also do that even now. And if you just start, you may have to remember that you will have to start somewhere. So when you shift careers, you have to understand that you'll start maybe at a slightly lower level than what you might currently be. Because if you've been in business for 8 years, you're probably near a leadership position. You're definitely not going to get leadership positions in product management. So you may have to start a little low, but your in-depth expertise and your learnings of business will help you grow in product management. And you might actually make a really kick-ass trajectory. So that's always there. anything else? I think we are done with all the questions. I've gone through them. If I have not answered your questions, please feel free to ask. Any other questions that you have?
Yeah, I'd like to ask one more question.
Yeah.
So basically, like you were like during the call, you said that if you are there's a analyst role or a PM role, and you know that you want to become a PM, like definitely you should go for a product manager role.
Yeah.
Right.
The better.
So right now, let's say you have this option. So I'll say this is my scenario actually. So you can be a business analyst at Ola, or you can be a product manager at one of the startups, and like early stage startups with around like 1 lakh downloads. It's pretty much like it has been there for 5 to 6 years. So what should be the call?
That's your personal call, dude. Absolutely your personal call. So I will not comment on that at all.
I want you to comment on that. Like I'll
like,
leave the
I
personal
know,
call,
I
but
know. So this like I'm very wary of giving any advice because it can go either ways. Ola is a very established and reputed brand. That also helps. So I have seen people move from product analyst roles to product management. It's actually a very straightforward path. There's nothing, but you will have to work with the company, right? You'll have, I don't know what Ola has internally for this shift. Similarly, you already are getting a product management in a startup. Maybe the startup does well, or maybe the startup fails and you're out. So there is no guarantee. So I will not comment. My only comment is that be sure that you want to be a product manager and then figure out which ones will give you that. So it's a risk versus reward.
right.
If I were you, like as I said,
I get it.
yeah, product earlier the better. So is typically the only thing I can say. If you, but yeah, you have to make sure that you're not getting into a startup that might not be there tomorrow. And let me put it very frankly and bluntly:
Right.
the startup is failing. It's on the product managers as well. You are responsible. Like a dev may not be responsible, right? The dev may be a cast dev. Just that the people who set the vision failed. So product manager takes the brunt of a failed startup as well. And of course, the
Right.
successful startup as well. So if a startup succeeds, product managers do reap the rewards of that as well. Like look at Flipkart product managers. Some of them are legendary, man. Look at Swiggy, like,
Right.
and even Ola, man. They're like so many years in the industry. They typically started when there was no product management practice per se. In Flipkart, you just gave example of Udan, right? So yeah, see, legendary people. Because they grew the company, they understand the basics, and they're doing well. If Flipkart had failed, they would probably not be doing this.
Hey, so I have a question.
Yeah.
So like you said, you gradually shifted into a PM role. So when you made that shift,
I suddenly shifted to a PM role.
Suddenly.
I had very, very frankly, I joined ISB to become a tech consultant.
Okay.
I was very clear about who I wanted to do. And even the companies that I was targeting were not McKinsey's of the world, but Accenture, TCS, Infosys. This service is the industry that I had come from, and I admired a lot of people in that companies. So I wanted to follow that career path for me. Only when I joined, you understand there's something called product management. I knew what it is, but I was not 100% sure, frankly, what it is. So I got into consulting, and only after getting into consulting, I realized I hated it. And then I was looking at certain things. I wanted to be more near building stuff than just telling what to build, like giving a gyan and going off. I wanted to remain with the recommendation for a longer period of time, and hence, and when like Microsoft approached, it looked like a good deal. I interviewed, I joined. That's it.
Yeah. So where my doubt is like when you became a product manager, like an established product manager, did you just rely on all of your different aspects that you learned through your experience, or like did you look at any resource, or like what? How did you like in your first job? How did you develop the PM skills?
I read a lot. Of course, I read a lot, and a lot of it is experiential. And once, like one good advantage of larger companies is there is already a lot of what do you say expertise within. So uh, your managers are like really really great people. So you actually automatically by talking to them, pitching to them, you learn a lot. So it's a more of an experiential thing. And of course I read a lot and I taught myself new skills. Like I taught myself design. Like I can actually open up a sketch and give you a mock that will look really good. Not that I'm anywhere close to what a lot of designers can do, but it won't be half bad. Similarly, I taught myself how to do much more deeper analysis of the data. What like I taught myself tools also like Google Analytics. I love Google Analytics. I would call myself a semi-pro at that. And then, of course, I looked at what kind of things people looked at and how do I try and replicate it in my product. So if I read a blog about they're talking about how to measure retention, what are the typical metrics, and I say, hey, what are these on my product? And then you will be able to like understand, start and make connections. So read a lot. There are enough resources out there. I'll probably publish something uh, in some time, maybe a couple of weeks, which has some of these resources.
So, hi Madhur.
Yeah.
I had a question. So, for someone who has been a developer and has been coding a few bunch of applications in college and is versed with the development aspect of things and is sure wants to get into, say, a PM job.
Yeah.
And so, what happens is if you get an APM job or something, you are well off and you can go down that trajectory. But what happens a lot of times is a lot of startups offer you the product analyst role. So in that case, if you're sure you want to get into PM and you are adept with development per se, so do you continue with a development role somewhere or do you go with that product analyst role to get
Yeah.
into
So again, a personal call. Both of them have leeway into product management. Uh, a lot of my, for example, Microsoft, a lot of my colleagues actually were developers who decided to become product managers. And companies typically are okay and encourage that also, some of them. So you need to figure out what kind of companies these are and what is the pathway that leads towards product manager. Is it a clear path or is it like, hey, we'll see later, we might not? So if it's a larger company, typically they have these pathways, these PM rotator programs, APM programs, where anybody in any of those areas can actually try and be a PM. So
Okay.
yeah, talk to them. Both of them have of course, devs do become PMs. I mean, you can like a large portion of PMs are ex devs, so that's already already there. Similarly, data analysts also become PMs. The question you need to also answer is like, do you really want to be an analyst or a developer? That's the right question right now. If you don't have a PM option, what do you want to do now?
Yeah,
Hi, Madhu.
that
Sorry. So you talked that if we are sure we want to pursue PM role, we should go for it. But a doubt in it, how like what things should I look for to be sure? Like in my case, I'm already placed at Credit Suisse, and I have always worked for finance schools. But
Mhm.
like during my placement session, I created these decks and eventually got a hang of this role. I did an internship in the past. It was not a PM role, but like work was somewhat parallel to it, and I liked it. But like in this brief span of let's say 2 to 3 months, I'm not sure whether like I'm 100% into this role.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
what are the key things that I should see to know that okay, I'm
uh,
100% ready and I can risk my job out there?
yeah. So I don't think you ever risk everything, right? So there's always if you're good at what you do and you decide to take a little diversion from the path, you can always come back. I had a friend, great developer, did an MBA, became a PM, decided he doesn't really like PM, so shifted back to a developer. So that's always there. So I mean, it depends on which part of, like, which stage of a career you are. If you want, if you feel that that's a path that you like, talk to more PMs. What do they do? The kind of offers of PM that you're getting. What are the typical day-to-day work look like? Maybe take a call. Maybe go and check it out for a few months. If you don't like it, you can always come back, right? If you're good at your job, most companies also have a green channel to get you back. Like, what
Uh,
stops you? And even in your companies, like, all companies have, I won't say all, many large companies have PM rotator programs. You can take part of that. 6 months you'll be a PM working with other PMs under, say, a senior leader, and they will be coaching and mentoring you. And after 6 months you have a choice: you want to continue in PM role, or you want to go back to whatever you were doing. Every company that has PM rotator program should have something like that, like on similar lines. PM rotator does not mean you are a PM now. It just means that you are trying out, and there's no guarantee that you will get a role. They might say that you're not fit for it.
okay, great. So, okay, that helped.
I see
Sec-
it's a good role. So again, I know I'm I'm not dousing the fire. I'm just trying to be pragmatic because there's too much of romanticized information available outside. It's a super good role if you like it. It is one of the few roles which can basically poke their nose into everything. Like, at today, I can actually, like, start getting into, say, copywriting to marketing to sales to BD to developer development to release cycles, everything, because that's part of my job. For others, it will be taking initiative and all that stuff that may not be part of their jobs. But for me, that is actually part of my job. Like, every single part of the business, of a life cycle of a product, is a product manager's job. So it's a great role to be in, and uh, but it's not for everyone. So you need to make sure that you understand that. Like, for example, just to give you a personal example, one of my first learnings about a product manager was to stop my developer mind, because every time you throw a problem at me, my mind would start working on, how do I solve this? And I would have made database designs in my head by the time the meeting was over. Hey, we'll look at this system, that system. So the problem with that is that at the end of the day, I had a solution, but I didn't understand the problem. I didn't understand what the user wanted. I was just always thinking about, how can I solve this? I can make this new cool feature. I can make this new cool feature. And that's how I was for 6 years, because that was my job for 6 years, to actually get, like, developer. I was a developer, right? So, and especially in service-based companies. So service-based companies typically have a very clearly defined stuff that they want, right? Uh, so now I had to stop myself from actually thinking about a solution at all. So that was a big learning, but that also meant that I was no longer building. So I would feel a little sad sometimes, like, okay, now we have decided this is what we have to build. Let's start. But let's start is like, I have to take a step back, let other people take over. And then they will get into this tech discussions and all the stuff. I could be a mute listener, but I'm no longer the person who's actually building that part. So those are the kind of decisions that you'll have to take and see if it is for you. It's not for everyone. I've seen
uh,
designers who've gone back.
okay. So, Madhu, like from your experience, if I just say, okay, tell me four things that if a person has in it, he should definitely go for product management. So, out of your
I,
experience, what would be those?
I don't
Like,
know.
if you like these things, if you like that,
No,
so you
I
can
really
try
don't.
it out.
I really don't know. I can only say, if you can, like, on the top of my head, if you have great empathy. Of course, everybody will say they have empathy. So that's a that's a bad question. But you like to have opinions on stuff out there and think more from holistically about stuff. You could be a product manager. You could do well as a product manager. You may not like it, as I said.
Yeah, so
Oh,
Madhur,
okay.
I had a
Yes.
question. So when you are starting out in a role, as you mentioned, it helps if your manager or the company is like adept in guiding you to the proper practices, etc. So, is there something we should be looking for in a prospective mentor or a company to
They
evaluate
have done
whether?
too. Both, like, it's a thing. One is what they have done, and are they good to talk to, and would they be willing to spend time and effort in you? So it's not different from any other role. It's not different from, like, a software engineers also need mentors, right? I wouldn't say need mentors, but having a good tech lead is so much important to actually developing as a software. Like, I'm so thankful to some of my managers. We are still in touch, because they really helped me see it in things in a different light. Similarly, in product management, I've learned from a lot of people. So it's necessary. That doesn't mean that don't join startups. In startups, you basically learn trial by fire. Some of you will come out, and that's a great way to learn as well.
So, as a segue into that, if you were graduating sort of right now, what would you have preferred, so to say, either a startup or what is the opportunity you want to grow in?
Wherever, like, I have absolutely no. So when I went to Cognizant as a senior consultant. So after my MBA, I worked with one startup. So I'm not the best person to actually advise you on startup versus large companies. Both have their advantages. Big advantage of startups is that absolute, like, there's a lot of chances that you will have a lot of control, and the scope of work would be really high. Larger company, the scope might be a little limited, but the impact would be really high. And one of the big things about larger companies is uh, there can be so much legendary stuff. It's the same thing as doing an MBA. You can learn on your own. There's nothing that stops you. You can read a book, or you can actually have a discussion with the book's author. So when I was doing my MBA, we could actually get into a discussion. Our professors were the ones who had written those books. So it's a very different kind of an experience. That doesn't mean that I would have learned lesser if I had done the study on my own. I don't know. So I don't have a context on that. So think about legendary product managers. Like, of course, this is too new. You guys are thinking, yes, you're starting, so there's no legendary in your mind yet. But there are a lot of legendary product managers out there, and if you could spend time with them, of course, you will learn a lot. Satya Nadella, if I'm not wrong, was a product manager, right?
Yeah.
So was Sundar Pichai. So, so of course now it's too far. Like, but of course, people who have worked with Sundar Pichai would have learned a lot from Sundar Pichai, right? So, that's a big advantage of a larger company, that you can learn by. I mean, some of the people, even I worked in current company and previous company, they were legendary, man. Like Microsoft, one of our senior, like, directors or something, was somebody who invented this Visual Studio or did this cool stuff. So it's like people who have started this whole practice of product management. If you are able to get some guidance from them, it's really good.
Thank you.
But again,
one little
my take.
question.
Remember the salt thing that I said in the beginning. Take everything I say with a pinch of salt. This is just a view. There are many views, and there will be product managers who will say that whatever I am saying is BS.
Sure.
Hey, Madhur.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you talked about few dreadful aspects of being a product manager. It's not as romanticized as they say. So
No, it's a
what?
great role. I'm just trying to control the enthusiasm to give a product, like a pragmatic view. It is a great role. I'm not, just to be clear. Yeah.
Yeah. But what are some of the dreadful aspects of the role which might you know bring a balance to this?
Yeah, so I won't say dreadful. Everything has their like things that you will enjoy, things you will not enjoy, and it is completely personal, right? There are a lot of PMs who hate, say, like BD stuff, right? There'll be a lot of PMs who don't like inter-team collaboration. Of course, that takes a toll on you, right? If uh, like, that's why once you become product manager, the big choice for you also is like large companies or small companies. Small companies ship fast, 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 fast. Large company, you have to like work through multiple geographies, multiple teams, because everything is owned by somebody else. So figuring out how to actually get this done is a big challenge. So that can take a
Right.
toll. You are also responsible for the communication and everything, like so that your team gets credit for what it's doing. That's something that is super important on you. You are also responsible for actually many, it depends on the company, to actually getting the funding for the product. Like, hey, this is why we need to do this, so this is the data. Some people hate data, some people love it, some people don't like user research, some of them are like can't move an inch without it. So it's a mixed bag, what you like, what you don't like, but you're supposed to do all of that.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Like, some people hate the fact that you are the that, and I think yeah, for valid reasons, like you have to jump in for whatever is missing, right? If you're, say, if you're a copywriter, you don't have a marketing person, you might be sitting and writing copies, sure, but many people don't like it. Hey, that I'm spending thing on the wrong thing maybe. So yeah, you'll have to figure out what kind of a product manager you are, and what are the things you like. Do you want to go deep into a problem, or do you want to like look at it at a multiple, like a larger 10,000 feet kind of a thing? So that's also another way of doing it, and hence the kind of product managers differ. Some products managers hate custom consumer products. They want to build a product for techies, for example. They want to build stuff which is platform oriented. They want platforms, they love platforms, and there are a lot of them who hate platforms. So
So, one little add-on question to that. So you talked about that product manager is
sorry,
someone who.
I can barely hear you.
So a product manager is someone who carries the vision and reiterates that vision.
Uh,
Correct?
yeah, carries the vision.
Yeah.
Yeah, not the only one, but basically everyone carries the vision. Your job is to make sure that it's not getting lost.
Right. So for that, you need to be like you need to be updated, and you need inspiration from other product owners and whatever is going on in the industry you are working upon.
Yeah.
So what are some of these avenues where you consume content or for inspiration?
I
Where
would say inspiration. It depends on, again, which product, which kind of things that you're looking at. The best inspiration typically for consumer product comes from direct consumers themselves. If you are in touch with your customers via surveys, via what they talk about. Frankly, like when I was working in Uber, um, I had a tweet alert for m.uber.com. So if you tweeted about m.uber.com, I would know. I've potentially even replied to some of them and sent out, like, tried to solve a lot of these problems, but at least have an understanding of what the market is saying about, our actual customers are saying about it on platforms that we don't control also. And of course, surveys and everything that we run. So that's your best way of doing it. Larger companies will also have a lot of research studies and everything internally that they might have collected. You can talk to your researchers. They have treasures and treasures of data. There are a lot of industry studies that you can buy. Then, of course, depends on which industry you are. Keep a track. TechCrunch is a great source. There are a couple of great aggregators for website of like tech news and all the stuff, assuming you're in tech. Like, I'm in tech, so I look at that. I use Pocket and all. I follow a lot of product leaders on Twitter. That's another good way. Frankly, like, Twitter is becoming more and more of a content source for me, rather than just like 140 character text. uh, so yeah, you can do that as well. Sometimes I see on LinkedIn, Facebook is used less, so uh, for for this kind of work, at least for me. So yeah, these are the places where I look at, and then you figure out some of the blogs that you like and enjoy, and just bookmark them. There are a lot of great podcasts. I'll highly recommend. Naval is a great guy. You should read his not read, sorry, listen to his podcast. They are amazing. He doesn't talk about product management. Talks typically about startups and other human, basically talking about life in general. I would say like businesses, building businesses, and how to become rich is one of his most famous one. But It's really.
What's the name of the podcast again?
There is one called Novel I would recommend, something on top of my mind. The LinkedIn founder started something called Masterclass. That's also good. Masterclass or no, sorry. Masters of Scale. That's also very interesting. So you can look at that as well. There are a lot of, these are the podcasts that I read. There are a lot of blog posts that you can share. You can form your own communities, man, to share some stuff if you want to. Read a lot of books. So yeah.
Any suggestions for books which you'd like to recommend, which you read? Or
Dude, it's very specific things that are. There is a book again. I'll be very skeptic of recommending those books to students right away. First, get a handle on what you guys are doing. Then think about becoming a generalist. But you can read, like, Google it. You will find a lot of recommended product management books, and most of them are on point.
okay, okay, thanks.
What else? Oh yeah, there's one
So
more. If
Madhur,
you really want to go deep into some data and growth hacking, there's this guy called Andrew Chen. He writes really well.
so Madhur, I was just talking about the interviews that happened, right? You must have interviewed. You of course would have interviewed at different companies like Uber, Microsoft, and other
Yeah,
companies.
Uber and Directa. Yeah.
How do they differ, and how are they similar in some ways?
From what? Different in sense?
Different in the sense, what skills do they test? Some like they must be testing design, tech
Yeah,
knowledge,
so,
as well as.
every company will tell you exactly what they are actually testing on. So some of them would be testing you on just problem solving and just basics. Uh, some companies specify that this interview is for product sense, this interview is for say strategy, this is for say analytics. There is a book on it called Cracking the PM Interview, I think by Gail, and there was one more author I'm forgetting. Um, I believe that's a great book. It kind of covers a lot of these aspects. Cracking the PM Interview is called. So people who want to become PMs also and have done like design and have been, say, for example, designers or something, I actually give that book to them, even if they are not trying to become like join as PMs. The reason is that um, that book is a great let's say source of what typically companies are looking for in PM candidates. So this gives you a kind of a mindset, like what is the mindset that a PM is supposed to have. So that's a good book. I mean, again, another one that I would recommend if you were asking for book recommendations. Yeah, that's a book I univocally recommend to everyone who wants to even know what a PM does. Go read the book on what PMs are interviewed for. You know what PMs do. That's an ideal state, right?
Right.
Yeah. What else? Anything else? Thanks to the Zoom product manager who thought of this feature of extending this call. See, it's such a great experience. Now all of you remember Zoom.
Yeah, they're engaging us.
Yes, they have engaged us. So from a 40-minute call went to, oh my God, about 1.5 hours.
1 hour, 40 minutes, 100 minutes.
1 hour, 50 minutes, about 2 hours. So that's great for them. They might send me a notification to buy a paid version, but
Exactly.
if I were to do this multiple times, I'll probably do that.
Yeah. So I had a question. Is it okay to ask about prioritization of features? Is it okay if I talk about ask about that?
So just a quick check, people. There is absolutely okay. Some of them have already, so I don't have to tell them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, 10. Oh no, everyone is there. So there is absolutely no compulsion to stay. If you guys have all the answers that you need and you don't have any more questions and you don't want to listen to, you have other stuff to do, please feel free to drop. Nobody will mind. I don't want to waste your time. So coming back to this question of prioritization, I think it requires a much deeper discussion on what and how. There are various ways people do it. None of them is wrong. So, but this may not be the right time or forum for it.
Okay, so I was asked in an interview. So I've read about it, and I can't seem to
Sure.
make them happy about the answer.
Again, I can't give you the answer, dude. You have to figure that out.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I've read about price methods and feature prioritization metrics and stuff, but in the end, they're like, I don't know, like there's something still missing. I can't find it.
So I said, see, a lot of product management is experiential in nature. There is no right answer per se, because product management is like somewhat similar to say general management. Just that one of the things, there was one more thing that people pointed out, right? What could be make or break? Make or break could also be that nobody reports to you. You have to remember that. Product manager is a solo job. So the only people who might eventually report to you will be other product people. So, so it's like just, so you are responsible for it, but you actually don't have authority over it. You have all the responsibility, but no authority. So you have to understand. That's why understanding that how to work with cross-functional teams is a very, very key skill for product managers. Otherwise, like, a designer can say, hey, this person is not good, I don't want to work with them. Like, you can't really do anything. You're not their manager. Let me put it this way. You're not the manager. Similarly, you're not the managers of researchers. You're not the managers of developers. Your job is hard because one of the reasons it is hard is because of these things. You can't tell people do it because I say so, because you actually have zero authority over them. Your job is to make sure that they are married to the vision, and they are married, and whatever recommendations and prioritization you are saying have logic behind them. It's something that you're able to convince people on. The best way to destroy any team is a product manager who says, like, do it because I say so. That's why a lot of companies don't do, some companies don't do well, is because the CEO says, like, do it because I say so, because then everybody's just doing it because their salaries depend on it. So it will eventually fail. So that's why, that can make it really hard as a job as well. So you need to understand that you can't throw your weight, like, and you know that, and everybody knows that. And for a very, very long time, you will not have people reporting to you. It's mostly an IC job. And when people even start reporting to you, most of the companies, maybe smaller companies, may have, like I had in one of the companies I worked for, designers reported to product managers. But that's not the standard in most companies. So only product managers report to product managers eventually. You grow in the product ladder.
Okay.
Unlike developers. Yeah. So remember that could be a make and break for a lot of people. Okay. I think I have run out of time and I need to rush now. Thank you so much, guys, for attending. And I'll share the recording. And if some of your questions, please feel free to add them to that list as well. I'll see if I can add more stuff. Maybe put a blog post or something. Sounds good?
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yeah,
That was
thanks a lot.
good.
Thank you, Madhur.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.